You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to episode 59 of the Soul Forge podcast.
Welcome to the Soul Forge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Shawn Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soul Forge.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Yourself?
I'm okay. Who the heck are you, and what are you doing in my podcast studio?
I am Tracy, and I'm in your podcast studio because it's my dining room.
Ah, right. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know you from previous episodes of the podcast.
Yes,
So
I've been on here 2 shows.
I believe you were on episode 51. I just got a divorce, and maybe 46. Is this all there is to life?
Sure.
Does that sound right?
Well, the titles sound right, but I have no idea what numbers they were.
I don't know either. I didn't look it up in advance.
I'm pretty sure you know. You have a good memory.
I have an okay memory
You have a really good memory.
for some things, not
Yeah.
for everything. But welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thanks.
It's glad to have you back.
Yes,
And
it's great.
since my podcast studio is your dining room
For today.
for today. Now, there is a bit of echo in the room here, so hopefully the microphones aren't going to pick it up too much.
Hopefully not. Do I need to put more things on my wall?
You might need to put more things on your walls.
Where?
I don't know, because you do have a lot of things. But
Okay. Anyhow,
anyway,
we'll get through.
we'll get through it. And we're using 2 mics. We each have our own. So we'll see how this goes.
I feel really special.
You are really special. And that's why you are now on your 3rd episode of the Soul Forge podcast. Congratulations.
Yay! You need to insert some sort of clapping sound right here.
Oh, I don't think I have any. But if I come across some in the editing process, I will
Okay.
do so.
All right.
Just for you.
Thanks.
All right. So what are we talking about this week?
Do you believe in reincarnation? I just totally stole your line.
You did. You totally stole my line. I think you need to have your own podcast. You're so good with just inserting yourself into things that you might need your own show, the
Sorry.
Tracy Show.
No.
You don't think you could do this week after week after week?
I probably could do the talking part, but I wouldn't want to do the other stuff, the editing and uploading and all that.
The editing, the uploading, the show notes.
Right.
Coming up with a catchy name for each episode title.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the hardest things to do.
And then like trying to advertise it because I see you posting it on
I'm
Twitter
posting
and
it.
Facebook and
Yes.
things. So
Twitter, Facebook, the Facebook podcast groups,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere I can.
see, what I would need to do would be to jump right into a well-established podcast that has somebody else doing that for me.
Such as the Soul Forge podcast or the Rusted Robot.
Yeah, I could be a guest. This is great for now.
I like to have a guest every once in a while. Well, last week I did Soulmates and Intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
That was a solo show. And then every once in a while, I like to switch it up and have a guest.
Why not?
And here you are,
Here I am in my dining room.
which is sometimes my podcast studio. Wouldn't you just know it?
Yeah.
Because I don't really have one.
Not yet.
Not yet. One day.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in my next life.
Maybe.
See what I did there?
Good segue.
Not bad, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we were trying to think of topics, what to talk about. There's been so many different topics on the podcast so far. Mm-hmm. We wanted to talk about something a little bit more light.
Yeah. I guess for some this might not be a light topic, but for us it is.
Well, it could be considered deeply philosophical, going into the heart of the metaphysical realm and whatnot.
Yeah.
Except we don't know much about that stuff.
No. We just have our own
Ideas.
opinions and ideas, and
So we're just going to go from there.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
let's dive right in.
Okay. All right. So what, in your opinion, is reincarnation?
That after you pass away from your current life, that you come back as somebody or something else, whether it be a person or an animal or something like that. I also have heard and think about the fact that you are in just a body. It's just your soul in some sort of body. So there really is no attachment.
So it's like you have an immortal soul.
Right. Yeah.
And the soul just goes from meat wagon to meat wagon.
That's an interesting way of putting it, I guess so.
A meat shell?
Sure.
What do you call your body?
Well,
It's
that sounds, I don't know if I would put it that way, but a body, just body.
right.
Yeah.
I was trying to be fun.
Yeah.
Didn't work?
No.
Oh, okay.
It made it sound like a meal.
Where are you going today? I'm going to the meat wagon.
Right?
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Anyway.
yes. So your soul is immortal, but it's not attached to your consciousness, unfortunately.
Right.
So let's say that I was born in 1592, for example.
Okay.
A poor Chinese peasant farmer. And I live my 30 or 40 years or whatever you live. I know I am self-aware. I know I don't like picking this rice or whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then I die.
Okay.
So that body goes away. And
Right.
the consciousness that was the 1500s peasant is also gone.
Right.
But the soul that was inside the person jumps.
Right.
Kind
And where does it go?
Where does it go? That's the thing. Does it go up to heaven? Does it go into like a holding pen? Does it have its own specific, like, does it look down on the world and say, you know what, I'd like to now try this? Like, does it get a
Okay.
choice? That's what I always wondered.
Okay.
Like, if the soul is good, like if I think it's Hinduism and Buddhism that was really into the whole reincarnation thing and the whole enlightenment path. And as you got enlightened, you went up a level, kind of a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know all the details. I haven't researched it since
That's it.
university.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so the 16th century peasant dies. His soul goes to wherever it goes. Does it immediately jump to the next person that's being born, or does it have a chance to rest and reflect,
Okay.
relax, and think about what it just went through? Does it get judged by a higher authority and say, you know what, you lived a good life, so now you get to be a nobleman?
Oh, okay.
Or you lived a bad life and you stole from your neighbor, now you get to be a monkey.
A monkey.
Right. And does the soul get to choose what kind of monkey? Or does it get to be an orangutan? Does it get to be a baboon? Or does it have no choice because it was bad?
Right.
And if it was good, does it have a choice of what it becomes?
Okay, you just asked a lot of questions.
I know. That's just, yeah, a lot.
And these are things that I haven't really gone into that much detail as to,
Your thoughts about them?
yeah, like maybe does the soul have a choice? But I don't know. Is it dictated by a higher power? Or my thought was kind of always that it depended on, like you mentioned, your life that you just lived. And the whole purpose is to achieve maybe enlightenment.
Yes.
So you just continue your journey and learn the lessons that you need to learn to achieve enlightenment.
And then you eventually, once you've gone through the entire journey, you get to go to Nirvana.
Yeah.
Not the concert, or to see the band. But
Well, no, you can't do that now.
I wish I had done a little bit more research, or could remember exactly where the whole concept comes from. I think it's Hinduism,
Okay.
but I'm not 100%
That was
sure.
the original.
Because it's been 20 odd
idea.
years since I studied all this in university.
Oh, you actually studied this.
I took several philosophy classes.
Oh.
So I remember a little bit, but mostly I've forgotten all that stuff because
Yeah.
that's 2 decades ago.
Yeah, a little while ago.
Yeah.
But you still have your own current opinion.
Yes. So, is there such a thing as reincarnation? That's the big question. A lot of people think there is.
A lot of people think there's not.
Exactly.
A
So,
lot of people believe that when you die, that's just the end.
right, there's nothing more.
Nothing more.
Just darkness, the lights out.
Some people believe you go to heaven. Some people believe you're just dead. And that's how you stay.
And there's no way to know
Right.
until it's your turn.
Right.
I'm not interested in finding out anytime soon.
No.
I can wait.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. So,
Good.
but if there is something beyond, who chooses where that soul goes? Because, like, that's the big question. Do we actually have a soul?
That's an entirely...
Philosophers have been asking that question for eons.
Well, what do you think, Shawn?
I think we do, because that's the spark of our consciousness. Because science can't explain where consciousness and self-awareness actually comes from. So that could be that undefined element, which is your soul. Because dogs are alive, but they're not intelligent, they're not self-aware, they're not sentient.
Right.
You know, they're our friends, and we like them, but they don't have that extra something, so they don't have the soul that we have.
Right.
But they say that, what was I just reading? Dolphins have it, chimpanzees have it, they have a certain amount of intelligence, but I don't know if that means they have a soul.
Figure that out.
I don't have any idea. Scientists are smart.
I'm assuming, obviously, behavior?
I think behavior. I'm
not very scientific.
No, I don't know a lot about that stuff, but I was just reading a book about crocodiles.
Okay.
And how they have a certain amount of intelligence as well, and they notice patterns.
Really?
Yes, and they'll watch you for a period of days. And so, say you go down to the river to wash your dishes at 2:00 every day.
They'll remember that.
They'll remember
know
that, and they'll lay a trap for you on the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th day or whatever.
Wow.
Because they know what your pattern is.
Right.
And so they expect it, and they might lay a trap for you 3 days in advance. And so there's a certain level of cunning and intelligence there. But does that give them a soul? I don't know.
I don't know either. Is it just, like, what gives you a soul? Is it just your intelligence? Is it emotion?
Well, I think animals have emotions, but they don't
So,
necessarily...
like, dogs have sadness and happiness, like wagging their tail.
And they get depressed.
Right.
Because you hear a lot of people talking about their cats. I went away for 4 days, and the cat won't talk to me now, or look at me. not talk to me, but you know what I mean. Like it won't come near me, it won't look at me.
Yeah.
And that'll go on for a period of days or hours.
Yeah.
Right. So they definitely have emotions.
But at least a combination of the intelligence and because I think emotion must have something to do with it. No.
You would think so.
Or is that just part of the body?
I wish I knew.
What do you think?
We do think. We think, therefore we are. But take a fly, for example. Do you think it has emotions?
I
don't think so.
No.
No. Just the same with ants. They're all a bunch of drones. They just do what their instinct tells them to do.
Yes.
I don't think an ant is happy or sad that it's carrying this thing to its queen, right?
No.
It just does what it does because it's instinct. So maybe the larger the animal becomes, the more developed its brain gets, and the more emotionally capable it is.
That
right?
Seems to make sense.
Because I can't imagine a grasshopper being happy or sad, but I can see a cat being happy or sad.
Okay.
And even say a gerbil, for example. Maybe mammals. Maybe it's mammals that have the emotions.
But an or a crocodile. What did you talk about? A crocodile is not a mammal.
Crocodile's not a mammal, but I don't know if it has emotions either. I think it just
has the intelligence.
The intelligence without the emotions.
So, for those, this is going to kind of change the topic a little bit, but we can just touch on it. For those who think that they are going to heaven, do you think that they are conscious about their actions because they want to get to heaven? Or do you think that's just what they believe?
That's a good question. So people who believe in heaven and want to get to heaven,
yes.
Do you think their actions are reflected in that and they become better people because of it? Think of all the bad guys in the church.
Right.
So, no, I don't believe so.
Right. I wonder what kind of percentage of people do behave that way because of their religious beliefs.
Probably a good amount. Even if they don't necessarily go to church all the time, they were raised with a certain moral upbringing. So morals are definitely in the equation, right?
Yeah.
Because then there are the I don't know if it's a psychopath or a sociopath, but the people who don't have emotions,
Right.
and they just emulate society. They'll clap when they're expected to clap.
Right.
They'll laugh when they're expected to clap, but they don't actually feel that emotion.
Yeah.
So they're
copycatting.
They're obviously intelligent. Do they have a soul? I would imagine they do, but maybe they're one of the people that were bad in a past life or bad in this life, and so they won't level up.
Right.
I guess I'm associating it with video games, that you just level up to the next thing, right? You go up or whatever, but it's not quite like that.
So,
but every soul is on a journey.
I believe that, definitely. Every soul is on a journey, and I believe that we're given obstacles
To
overcome in your life to help you maybe become a better person, or take that step toward enlightenment, whatever your ultimate goals are as a soul.
Well, they do say that the universe keeps sending you similar situations until you learn the lesson.
Exactly. Yes, I believe that.
So it's like you're given multiple chances.
Right.
In the same lifetime. Mm-hmm. You know, like...
Until you learn.
I did this, and this happened. And I did this again, and guess what? The same thing happened.
Yes.
Finally, on the 5th time the same thing happened, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try something different.
Right.
And so
right.
you pass that test or whatever. And so you must have had those aha moments, right?
Oh, for sure.
Where suddenly something clicks, and like, I never realized it from that perspective before.
You kind of shake your head at yourself.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
yes,
I get it now. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's part of your spiritual growth or your progress.
Yeah, I definitely believe that.
For example, I have a friend who's an atheist.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get her on the show to talk about her beliefs and her perspective and why she might not believe in a higher power and why she might just, whatever she thinks.
Right.
She's shy, and so I haven't been able to get her on the show.
Oh, darn. That would be interesting.
I think it would be a great topic.
Yeah. I would love to hear it.
Right?
Or even to have a conversation with her.
Exactly. And that's the whole reason behind the Soul Forge podcast, is talking about things that people don't necessarily like to talk about, or things that people don't know about. Mm-hmm. And how many podcasts have I listened to where they talk about reincarnation? 0. So I thought this might be...
It was a great idea.
A good topic of the week.
Yeah,
so,
I like it.
Before we get any further, let's listen to a podcast on the ESO Podcast Network to halt the entire flow of our conversation.
Of course. Sounds great.
Because we have to put it in there, so we might as well right here.
All right.
In a world where podcasters talk about the same old pop culture topics, 2 heroes must rise to bring forth a new era of podcast entertainment. The Cigar Nerds Podcast. Movie reviews, pop culture debates, news, science, and even beer reviews. We're stranger than Stranger Things and funnier than an evil sewer clown. CigarNerdPodcast.com. We all smoke down here, Georgie.
And that was awesome.
It was good. I'm looking forward to listening to that.
They have a great podcast, and I highly recommend listening to them and checking out all the podcasts on the ESO Podcast Network.
Yes, great network.
Very great. Yeah. So getting back to leveling up and reincarnation.
Leveling up.
Let's go back to our imaginary 16th century
okay, yes.
Chinese peasant who was a rice farmer. Mm-hmm. Was he a good man or a bad man?
Good man.
He was a good man.
Yeah.
So he picked his rice, he fed his family, he helped out his neighbors. Mm-hmm. 40 years after being born, he dies in, let's say 1632.
Okay.
Okay. So it's now July of 1632. He lived a good life. Mm-hmm. Does he immediately switch over in his soul to another body, or do we think there's a holding pattern, a resting period, where he gets to, or the soul gets to reflect on the life that it just lived and what it learned?
I think that the soul would get to reflect, because, right. and even as humans, we often reflect on things and then maybe form a different opinion of a certain situation or whatever it may be, after looking back and thinking about different other people's perspectives and what was said and what was done, how could I have done that different or better or whatnot. So I would guess that the soul would have that time as well.
It only makes sense, right?
Yeah, to me.
And this whole thing kind of reminds me of a movie that I watched in I think it came out in the late 80s.
Okay.
And I haven't seen it for years and years. But what it was these two people who really, really loved each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to see their souls up in heaven.
Okay.
And the man's soul wanted to track down the soul of the woman that he loved.
Okay.
So they got put back to the earth. But there was like a 20-year age difference.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and I don't remember all the details of what happened, but you saw it from the soul's perspective.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Waiting for the kid to be born.
Yeah.
Around the same area where this woman was.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a really good movie.
That does sound
It had
good.
a lot of big famous people in it, but it's been so long since I've watched it, and I was never able to track it down again.
No? I was going to say maybe we could try and find it and you could put it in the show notes, but...
I can try.
Chances are.
Yeah.
I can do a plot lookup on IMDb or something.
Sure.
International Movie Database.
Right. You told me about that before, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
The Soulforge podcast is not sponsored by the imdb.com app, but it should be. So
It
if
should
anybody
be.
from IMDb is listening, we would love to have your support.
Mm-hmm. That'd be fantastic.
Yes. Let's see if that works. All right.
Probably.
So we both think that in 1632, the soul, after it leaves the Chinese peasant's body, gets to reflect. Because that only makes sense. Because you can't just go hop from life to life without having a chance to sit back and relax and reflect.
I think the reason I believe that is because if the soul does have a purpose and you would go from life to life without being able to reflect on what you've done and accomplished in the previous life, how are you going to be able to make changes, even though you don't have the same consciousness, but you're still the same soul? So, I don't know. I think it's the purpose that makes me believe that.
And I think the soul, as it hops into the next person, say in 1644 or something, who knows how long the holding pattern reflection pool is, but it hops into the next person. The soul knows what it wants. So do you think it directs the consciousness? Or do you think the consciousness is an independent body and the soul is just like a passenger?
I think that there is a connection.
There must be, right? Because if it was just a passenger, then it wouldn't be able to direct things,
Right.
learn, and level up. It just becomes a vehicle.
I also believe some people have more of a connection than others. Maybe some people aren't really aware of it either, whereas others might be very aware of that connection.
Is that like when you meet somebody and they're described as an old soul? Like maybe they're nearing the end of the journey, their enlightenment is almost complete?
Yeah.
Because you've met people like that.
Of course.
Or even kids who seem
Yes.
intelligent beyond
Yes.
their years.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that people who are more introspective may be nearing the end of the journey as well.
Yeah.
Because,
I agree.
because they think more, they're more self-aware, and they're not just going through life as like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if that's true,
I don't know either.
but I'd like to think that way because I'm one of those people who thinks a lot. So, but I have also made so many mistakes in my life. I'm obviously not in my final journey. So
Maybe you're just learning your last final piece of wisdom that you need.
maybe, but there's no way for me to know.
No.
Because there is a disconnect between the soul and the consciousness. Like the consciousness can't access the soul's purpose.
Right.
But I bet the soul has access to all the consciousness's memories.
Yes, I think so.
Which makes sense, right? It's like,
To me.
and I've always thought this, that when a baby is born, the reason it can't talk is because it has access to everything.
Yes.
All the memories, all the knowledge of the universe. Yeah. And as it grows up and learns more about the physical reality of life, it loses all those memories.
Right.
And then it gains speech.
Right.
I don't know if that's true, but it's always been a thought.
Yeah, me too. And I like the idea anyway. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. Another thing that I believe is that kids often can be in touch with the spiritual world, and then often lose that
Yes.
as they get older.
Well, my mom used to tell a story of me sitting in my my stroller or whatever I was sitting in, and talking up to the ceiling at things that weren't there.
Yeah.
You know, so it was, and they always claimed that that house was full of ghosts.
Oh, there you go.
So,
And of course, you have no memory of that. You were
not,
too young.
not even
Yeah.
a little bit. No.
Yeah. I definitely believe that at least some kids have that ability. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
And even some psychic powers. Powers is a weird word, but my son, when he was young, maybe about 2-3 years old, I was picking him up from daycare, and it was in the winter, so it was dark, and I was telling him that there was a storm coming, and he said, "Oh, there's going to be lightning." So I kind of chuckled and said, "No, honey, there's not lightning in the wintertime. That's in the summer when there's a rainstorm." Well, wouldn't you know it, about 40 minutes later, there was lightning.
In the winter.
Yes.
And he had called it.
And he had called it. Yeah, so that's just an example. There was a couple other things too from when he was little, but it just kind of made me wonder. And
Yeah, I think the innocent are connected to the source of all wisdom, we'll call it.
yeah, I like that.
don't
The
know
source
better
of
name.
all wisdom.
The source of all wisdom, yeah. What else do you call it? I don't know.
I don't know either. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So Mr. What's his name from
the Chinese peasant?
Yeah, the Chinese peasant.
Okay, so he died in 1632. He was reborn in 1644. And he lived a good life. So maybe now he's not a peasant anymore. Maybe he's a business owner in Britain. We'll say that.
Okay.
Okay. So what's he doing now?
He's a business owner in Britain in the 1600s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is-
Do you think that perhaps sometimes your soul is meant to help other people
Yes,
as part of your journey?
I do believe that. Yeah, because you'll see a lot of famous people throughout history that you hear that they did these things against their society, and they did all this good, and sometimes they're allowed to have their plans come to fruition or whatever,
Right.
and sometimes they get beheaded.
Right. You don't know.
You don't know.
You take that chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Something you really believe in.
There are people who work against the society for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the Chinese guy who now lives in Britain is there to help somebody.
Maybe he's feeding the poor homeless street urchins. Maybe he's taking in battered women. We don't know.
Maybe he's scientist or an inventor.
Could be.
Yeah. I wonder if you could go, or a soul could go, well, I don't want to say backwards, but if we're going the level up way, let's say he went from being a good businessman, in the next life he was a thief or a murderer.
Right, he went down.
Maybe
a little.
because there's something else he has to learn.
It could be.
Is that possible?
I think so. So the soul might have multiple lessons it needs to learn, and it could be very leveled up in one area, but not so much in the other area.
Yeah.
So the next life, he becomes a worse human, so that he can go through those
Right.
kinds of
Experiences
and
learning and
learn what it needs to learn, so that in the next life, it has that experience and becomes
Yeah.
even better. I don't know how many levels that the soul needs to go through, or even if this is a thing or not, but
it's an interesting conversation.
it's a very good thought experiment. Yeah, so
Yeah, definitely believe in the whole soul thing. That's my current situation.
your current set of beliefs,
Right.
which means you believe in a higher power. Maybe not necessarily God of the Bible, but maybe
Right.
like a spiritual force,
Right.
or the
Maybe
great maker.
the universe, some people say, or even just that really the power definitely comes from the earth. I don't know.
It's hard to know.
I haven't really put a name to it.
No,
But
and I always quote this one thing that people say, and I always get it wrong. But it's like humanity is the universe come alive to observe itself. I can't remember who said it, probably Einstein or somebody. But I think about that a lot, actually, and how consciousness is being raised all over the earth, and how we're not dealing with all the bad stuff and just letting it be, because there are the protests and there's more and more as time goes on, right?
Yes.
And then there's sometimes there's backsliding, like with political systems and
yes,
bad people
unfortunately,
who come to power and that kind of thing.
Right.
We won't talk about anybody specifically, but
no, nobody in the United States that we're talking about.
No, we wouldn't do that. But I think, though, as humanity goes through the decades and the centuries, and as people become more intelligent and better informed and more aware of things,
right,
that the whole world, I guess, all the souls are uplifting,
right,
to the higher realm, I guess.
I think so.
And some are further behind.
Yep.
And some are further ahead, and so it becomes an average, and that's why society progresses the way it does.
I had two train of thoughts and I just lost one, so I'm gonna kind of I was gonna piggyback on what you just said, but that one's gone. But what do you think about, and because I know you like history, the statement "history repeats itself," and how does that? Do you think that pertains at all to reincarnation?
I could see that it does. Yeah, because we go through similar things. And everything, like you said, repeats itself. And as it does, we learn more and more along the way. So it goes in an upward spiral.
So I guess it could be considered that society has a whole lesson to learn, and we haven't learned it, so we have to do it again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's all the souls working together in
Right.
concert form. And so you've got your vertical axis, and the spiraling goes up and up and up, and it keeps hitting that axis, and that's when it repeats itself.
Right.
But you keep going up and up and up, and so you learn more and more along the way, so that eventually it doesn't have to repeat itself.
Right. Just like our own lessons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So, what happened to our Chinese peasant? He became a British businessman in the 1640s.
Maybe he was a Russian spy.
Maybe he was a Russian spy in the 1700s.
I don't know.
Maybe he was a Ugandan prince in the 1800s. In the 1900s, he might have been a tailor in Queens. We don't know.
Right.
Maybe he's one of us now.
Maybe you're him.
I could be him.
Wow.
Right.
If anybody knows, if they could write into Shawn and let him know.
Yeah. Can you access my soul file?
Oh, let me just... There is such a thing that apparently people can access your soul file, and it's called Akashic Records.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I don't really know that much about it. A friend of mine from work actually did this course to allow her to access Akashic Records. That's the maximum of my knowledge. I don't know any more than that. But apparently they can look back into your previous lives and the lessons that you were to have learned and maybe learned or didn't learn. I don't know. Yeah. If I truly
believe that that's possible.
Believe that that's possible. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but it would be interesting to hear.
I wish I would have known about this before we started the podcast, so we could have had her on the show with us.
Yeah, maybe another time.
Maybe that can be an upcoming episode.
Yeah.
The Akashic Record episode.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
if any listeners are interested, maybe you can message Shawn, and then he can message me, and then I can message this person, and she can charge you to do your Akashic Records.
Yes. You can email us at you can email us at soulforgepodcast@gmail.com.
There you go.
Yes.
We'll find out all kinds of things about the Chinese guy if anybody wants Akashic Records done.
Yeah. What happened to that poor man?
I know. Or maybe he was not a poor man. Maybe he was,
a feudal overlord.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Right. Okay. So either we were deeply philosophical or we were totally out to lunch and
maybe.
I don't know.
It was fun though.
Yes, and I would love to have listener feedback and comments.
Yeah.
You can tweet us at SoulForgePod on Twitter. The aforementioned email address, When the episode link is posted on facebook.com/soulforgepodcast, you can make a comment on the episode link.
That would be great. I would love that.
That would be awesome. So yeah. All right, Tracy. Well, that was an exciting episode. Thanks for becoming almost regular co-host on the Soulforge podcast. Your presence is always appreciated.
My pleasure. I enjoy it.
Good, I'm glad. So listeners, thanks for stopping by the Forge. Remember, we're going to keep the fires lit until your next visit. And remember, your past is meant to teach you, not hold you hostage. This has been another episode of the Soulforge Podcast. Contact the show by emailing soulforgepodcast@gmail.com or by tweeting soulforgepod on Twitter. Visit us at soulforgepodcast.com, and remember, the best way to show your support is by leaving a 5-star review in the iTunes Store. And, if you would, please check us out and like us on Facebook. The Soulforge Podcast was written, produced, scored, edited, engineered, and directed by Shawn Vanderloo. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Darth Vaderloo. For more great content, you can listen to my other podcast, The Rusted Robot. Thanks for stopping by the Forge. We'll keep the fires lit until your next visit.
I could do this all day.
From the director of Dirty Dancing, Alex Finch isn't himself today.
Who the hell are you?
Getting a strong German Shepherd vibration.
Good guess.
He's someone else.
I'm Louis Jeffries.
I'm so glad.
You two know each other?
Is he out of his element?
Uh-oh. This is bad. It's worse than I thought.
Out of his body?
It's your first time as a human?
I used to be a lawyer.
You!
My memory came back of my last life.
I beg your pardon?
You two know each other?
Or just out of his mind?
They're fooling with folios.
Philip!
Fooling with folios? Yes. Miranda. You two know each other? Peekaboo. Don't break that. It was father's. All he wants is your money.
He wants my body.
I'm gonna go upstairs and take a cold shower.
Go to your room, Alex!
Go to your room. Go.
I will. Mother?
Miranda.
Alex?
Mom? Are you quite through? Remember this? You two know each other?
Sybil Shepherd, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan O'Neal, and Mary Stuart Masterson.
This is incredible.
Chances Are, now on video cassette.
Not to be missed.
Chances Are, only from RCA Columbia Pictures Home Video.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic Store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.